Happy Friday to you, diehards and degenerates. We got a special edition of the Sharp Action Report for you. We got our guy Gianni in the house this week to talk UFC Kansas City. Johnny, how you doing today, my guy?
Never better, man. God bless America. Forgive the delay. Just a little busy. I just fired 2 PFL bets. The markets closed in 45 minutes, and I had a big trade that I was waiting to hit a level that I had to close out. So sorry, believe me, I got good information for you guys. Whether you follow or fade, just hope you make some money this Saturday night.
You love to hear it. No sweat. We totally understand. You got to make sure you hit that button before they shut you down. We just wanted to go ahead and run through the card here and see if you've got anything notable, whether it's an opinion or whether it's something that you've received, from your people to let us know if we should be following, fading, or even just avoiding a fight here at UFC Kansas City. Everybody do me a favor, hit the like button if you will. As always, this is Pub Sports Radio, and I'll be quoting lines from Superbook Sports, who sponsor the show. Let's go ahead and get started. First fight of the night, Lucy Pudilova taking on Jocelyn Edwards. This one's been kind of tough, back and forth. Little bit of tug of war on this one, some recency bias. Lucy looked real good her last fight. Jocelyn Edwards missing weight this morning. Lots to talk about here, Gianni. Do you have any thoughts on this first fight of the night?
Yeah, I actually was leaning the Edwards side. Here's the problem that I'm having with this fight. It's what you just nailed. It's the recency bias on the Pudilova side. Obviously, she's coming in having off a win, but she's 1-5, but 1-4 over her last 5, compared to Edwards, who's coming off 2 straight wins. So I wasn't surprised to see the line move go from Pudilova of a -175 down to a -135. That's what you should see with the momentum in opposite trajectories. With all that said, when I dig into the fight, though, like, it's tough to bet either of these sides, to have strong conviction. That's where I say, if I'm going to bet it, I'm going to find myself on the Edwards side. There's always less room for error when you're laying chalk, meaning when you're laying odds, you have to have stronger conviction. Anytime you're going to lay a price, like on a Pudilova, you're going to have strong conviction. And it's just very difficult to say something like that about a fighter who's won 1 of their last 5. That's the problem I have here. I see some sharp guys coming in betting the Pudilova side when it dropped, but I just don't see the reasoning behind laying a favorite price with a fighter who's won 1 of their last 5 fights, regardless of the opponent, especially an opponent who's coming in with 2 wins. So for me, it's a dog or pass situation.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. The next one up, we're talking about Gaston Bolanos, who comes to the UFC from Bellator, taking on Aaron Phillips. This has been a real tough fight for me, Gianni, because there's just so many questions. Gaston is a guy who I was not impressed with in Bellator. He's young, very good striker. I have huge questions about his grappling. And then Aaron Phillips has been 0-3 in the UFC. Massive disappointment. I'm kind of surprised he's even getting a 4th call in this spot. Do you have any thoughts or opinions on this one?
Hold on the Aaron Phillips fade. Here's why. Yes, he's 0-3 in the UFC, but let's not forget, he closed as a dog in all 3 of those fights. In fact, the average closing line was -303. So he was only expected to win 25% of those fights, meaning if he was 1-2, he would be outperforming the betting market. He would be far above what he should be doing. So the fact he's 0-3 is within the standard deviation of what his record should be based on the closing betting line. That shouldn't pull you off of the Phillips side that he's 0-3. If anything, he's doing what the markets expected him to do. On the flip side, he's coming off that huge layoff of 30+ months. But I will tell you, being a trend guy, if you go back over the last 70+ fighters, and again, I don't update it every week, I update it every 6 to 12 months. Sure. I can tell you this, over the last 70+ fighters who have been off for 12+ months, almost 6 out of 10 of those guys went in and won their fight. This is a complete reversal of this trend a decade ago, meaning between 2000 and 2010, if a fighter was out for a year, you faded him That's not the case anymore. In fact, with training, with rehabilitation, with just the way that the athletes now approach the game is much different. So a guy being out isn't as much as of a negative unless it's because the market just overreacted. And I just don't think that was the case back then. It wasn't an overreaction, or else we'd be seeing like it wouldn't be such a smooth, gradual move in the other direction. It would be quick. And that's not what we saw here. And that's why I wouldn't be fading Phillips all that soon. Again, fighters making their debut like Bolanos have not fared well. They've won, close to 4 out of 10 times at the most. And we don't know what he's going to do in MMA. Again, Bellator is a small sample size, but we have his kickboxing and Muay Thai background. We're not sure how he's going to do if this turns into a grappling affair. So it's another fight where I just don't have that conviction. Don't want to waste the viewer's time. If you have a strong opinion, go ahead and bet it. But I just think there's better positions to trade your dollars for a bet, for a ticket, than a fight like this one.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. And it's Aaron Phillips or pass, in my opinion, just because of not liking what I see from Gaston. So at this point, haven't bet it, but I'm right there with you. It would be a dog or pass spot for me. But let's keep on chugging here. We've got a big line move on this one. Denise Gomez taking on Bruna Brasil. I happily, Gianni, have a plus 180 in my pocket on Denise Gomez. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts or opinions on this fight, because I'm already in on it.
You're on the right side as far as the value side goes. And I even think the handicap supports her. Number one, with Brazil, obviously, we saw on Dana White's Contender Series this past summer. She got the win as a minus 155 favorite. So a slight on favor. She did what she was supposed to do. But again, we have a fighter making their UFC debut, and we know historically they lose more times than not. Flip side with Gomes, yeah, she may have lost her debut after winning as about a 250 favorite on the Contender Series, but she closed at almost a 2-1 dog. So had she been 1-0 going into this fight, having won as a dog, you'd be laying a price on Gomes. You would not be getting her at the discounted price. Couple that with 6 years younger. Those fighters tend to win 64% of the time over the last 10 years. 23 years old, under 25 years old, the highest winning age percentage over the last decade in the UFC, opposite of 40 plus, which is the lowest win percentage. So there's a lot of things to like on the Gomes side, even though she's coming in off a loss. For me, I agree with you. It's Gomes or pass. You have a great ticket in your pocket. Regardless of outcome, you placed a great bet.
Love to hear it, Gianni, and I'm glad you agree with me on the cap nonetheless. It's always great to get the line value. It's better when they win. So hopefully, hopefully Gomes gets it done on Saturday. All right. Zellhuber and Lando Venata. This is a really interesting spot to me here. Zellhuber, the slight favorite. I believe he opened up the slight dog. I think some people are a little nervous about what happened to Raul Rosas Jr. last weekend. That might have something to do with what's going on here. I have been this close all week to pulling the trigger on Zellhuber. I think, like you mentioned before, he's taken the time off. He's obviously going to be working on his skill set. And I don't like the way Lando Venata has been hopping back and forth through weight classes. And on top of that, he's like the literal definition of a 500 fighter in the UFC. Lean Zellhuber. Haven't bet it yet, but I might get there before tomorrow, Gianni. What do you think?
You're so on point with Zellhuber or pass, and the comparison to what happened last week, or otherwise this line would not be moving so swiftly in the opposite direction, because if anything, you expect a bounce back. This is a prospect who was 12-0. He won on the Contender Series. He got bet up to an over 300 favorite. That's how much steam was behind him, and he got it done. And then in his first fight, as a debut fighter who, again, they lose more times than not, he still got bet up to almost a minus 250 against Ogden. Granted, he lost, but there's just so much randomness to any one outcome. You can't put all that much stock into it. But when I dig a little deeper in the trends, here's what I like. Sure, he's 0-1 in the UFC, but we have a stance advantage, switch stance versus orthodox stance. Those guys tend to win 57, 58% of the time. We have a 6-inch reach advantage. Again, a 2 out of 3 time long-term trend, those guys tend to win. And then he's 8 years younger as well. 23, remember, under 25. Highest win percentage versus someone who's crossed that 30. 23 versus 31. Just those 8 years, 66% over the last decade. 2 out of 3 times, the younger fighter gets it done. So there are so many trends on the Zellhuber side. To me, it looks like an automatic bet. What scared me was the money coming in opposite on the Venata side. And the more I dug into it, the more it just didn't make sense to me. It's a guy, like you said, who's a 50-50 fighter. Even as an underdog, he's underperformed. He's 1-2, and the average closing line was plus 116. So that's a coin flip. He should actually be 2-1, if not better. So the fact that he's not even winning when he's a slight dog, I just don't like it. And it's against opponents in the UFC who have won less than 60% of their fights. So it's not as if his strength of schedule is even the toughest of tough. His wins come against a 54% winning opposition in the UFC. So for me, again, everything points to Zellhuber. Everything points to him having value, especially since this line moved. How can you bet Venata now? This line opened at minus 175, where Zellhuber was supposed to win 64% of the time. Now it's down to 125 where it was, where he's got to win close to 55%. So you implied win probability dropped by almost 10%. Why? Makes absolutely no sense. The right side's favored or passed. We rarely say that, but I think on this one, it's the right side.
Okay, I'm right there with you on that read here. Next up, Piera Rodriguez taking on Gillian Robertson, a personal favorite of mine. Gillian opened up the dog. She has since flipped. She's now a minus 130 favorite. I got in at about minus 115. I didn't look far enough ahead to get that plus number, but I still felt like it was okay at minus 115, even though I didn't quite get the best of it. What do you see on this one, Gianni?
Lay it. It doesn't even matter. Sure, I'd like the plus money on Gillian Robertson as well, but I'm comfortable laying all the way up to minus 150 on her. I think 6 out of 10 times she wins this fight comfortably. With Rodriguez, yeah, she's undefeated in the UFC, but that's exactly where she should be. She closed the favorite both times, and her opponents are a combined 3-5. You should win those fights. You look at the flip side, I like what I see over there with Robertson. She just continues to get overlooked, but she gets it done. Another one where as a favorite, she's 67%. She's won 6 of 9 times she's been favored. When she's in this role, she has outperformed the betting market. The average close is around minus 160. And again, she's up around that 225 range is where it should be based on her winning percentage. You're getting her at a discount here. The fact she opened up at a dog was ridiculous. Books got reprimanded for that. You make a mistake, wise guys are going to slap you for it. It's exactly what happened here. Sharp money's on Robertson. I'm on Robertson. Win or lose, I think it's a great bet, and I'm in the business of placing good bets. I can't fight for them. I can't judge. I can't call the fights. None of that. The only thing I could do is place good bets and let the chips fall where they may. Long term, so far, so good.
All right. I love to hear again. We're on the same side here on this one, Gianni. And thankfully, if Gillian wins, usually she's not leaving it to the judges. So hopefully we get that rear naked choke and don't even have to sweat a decision.
Indeed.
Maybe the worst fight on the entire card. Don't get me wrong. Might be fun from an entertainment standpoint, but the old men fighting over a new hip, Ed Herman taking on Zach Cummings. I mean, we've got 42 versus 39. We've got a 3-year surgery layoff versus a guy who didn't want to fight until he was in front of a live crowd. So he skipped all of COVID. What do you make of this mess, Gianni? I feel like it's dog or pass, but if there was ever a fight to just be like pass or pass, this is the one.
You nailed it. Thank you. If you're willing to bet this fight with conviction, next time you see me, hit me up. I got an account for you. There's some books I know you could bet into, man, that would love your action. Because there's absolutely nothing to make you have conviction and make you confident that you have an edge walking up to the window to bet this fight. You have one guy who hasn't fought since August of 2020 and an Ed Herman who is off a 20-plus month layoff. He hasn't fought since August of 2021. And they're not the youngest of fighters. So they haven't fought in a while. They're towards the end of their careers. And how can you possibly lay, again, any chalk here? I'm not even excited to get get the plus money, because I don't even know if that's a decent bet. This is one of those where, again, you watch it as a fan, unless you have some kind of inside information, again, not fixed, meaning that isn't factored into the betting line. Like, one guy hasn't trained as much or one guy's not healthy, something along those lines. Sure, take advantage. But from the data, from the trends, from advanced analytics, there's absolutely nothing there to make me want to get to the window and part with my dollars. It's just not going to happen on a fight like this.
Completely agree. Completely agree. I'm a massive Short Fuse fan. He's one of the guys that got me into the sport all these years ago. So I'm going to be rooting for him, but definitely no financial investment.
Exactly. And he's produced as a dog. He's actually 7-8 as a dog, 7-8-0 in a no contest, which is 44%. And his average closing line is 203, which is 33% implied win probability. So he's actually outperformed the betting market by over 10% as an underdog. If you're going to bet Ed Herman, you want to bet him in this role, actually. So it may not be a bad spot. There is an argument there. And more importantly, with the Cummings side, again, the scary thing is he's performed well as a favorite, 6-1, but he was a high favorite. He was close to -300 on average. So he's kind of done what he's supposed to, maybe a little bit better. But it's one of these where I think dog or pass, but I'm just not willing to take the dog, man. Might probably spent too much time on this fight anyway.
Probably so. It's all good though. Next up, maybe, my main event, Gianni, my favorite fight on the entire card, Nicolau taking on Royval, probably a #1 contender spot, maybe the most exciting division the UFC has to offer. Nicolau's a decent sized favorite here in this spot, taking on Royval. And I feel like these guys, I said it on my Monday show, they're yin and yang. You've got one guy who creates chaos and is a whirl of knees and elbows. The other guy who is patient and plodding and waits for his moment like a coiled snake to strike. It's going to be really interesting to see who gets their hand raised here. Again, for me, it's going to be dog or pass, but I'm also massively invested as a fan on the Royval side. I just love the way this guy fights. So far, I haven't gotten to the betting window. I got to make sure it's head over heart, not the other way around. What do you make of this one? And is there anything we should know?
Here's the situation with this fight. You saw the line open at -200 and money came in on Royval. So right away, there was sharp money that thought, wait, this is too high of a favorite. And they bet it immediately down to about -155. So they got it down to where they'd taken it a +140 at the best. And that's when everything changed. And the money started coming in on Nicolau's side. So there was a difference of opinion. But the problem with this is we've also seen a lot of movement on the total. You got to put the whole picture together. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you could see what the odds makers are thinking and what they expect is going to happen. When you see with this total, 2.5 with the over favored, and money kept coming in on the under. It got to a point where the under was favored. Now it's about a coin flip. But let's not forget, it started 2-0, -200 towards the over. To me, it appears correlated. That's the problem I'm having. Because when I look at these two young men, and I don't like to play psychic because you don't make money that way, but it's just so glaring. I look at Nicolau, and when he wins, it's mostly by decision. Only 3 out of 8 UFC fights finished inside the distance, and that's well below even flyweights, which are only at about 43% going over the last 10 years. And more importantly, last year, flyweight finished inside the distance at 56%. So almost double-digit percentage above what they have done historically. Sure, we expect that to regress a little, but not all that much. So we have a fighter who's below expectations as far as being able to finish fights. On the flip side, with Royval, that's all he does. Win or lose, meaning 5 of his 6 UFC fights finished inside the distance. Because the total's moving the way it has, that's what's scared me from the Nicolau side. And I actually think it makes a lot of sense, you leaning on Royval and liking that dog position. Because to me, I was looking at the Nicolau side. I'll be honest with you. I like what he's done overall. I like how he's performed as a favorite. I like that he's outperformed the betting market. The competition's been about average, and he's flown a little bit under the radar, where I think Royval has a little more name recognition as well. So I thought we'd get a little bit of value there on the Nicolau side. But kind of like I said, the opposite happened, where even though a little early money came in on Royval, it's been nothing but Nicolau since. That's why we're looking at a minus 200 favor. I don't want to go long and confuse anyone, but what I'm telling you is the betting line says Royval. That's what it's telling you. The betting line's telling you Royval, but the handicap doesn't. The data doesn't. And to me, all the boxes have to check for me to place a bet. Again, I don't keep my stuff a secret. There are 3 or 4 factors that I look at in every single sport. It hasn't changed. These are the edges I try to look for. When all the boxes confirm, I place a bet. When they don't, I don't. And that's the problem I'm having here. Again, not to go long, but I like the Nicolau side, but all the boxes don't check off. The line move isn't moving the way it's supposed to be moving, and the total isn't moving in connection with the side the way I'd hoped. If all those pieces aren't matching up, I've got no reason to part with my money. It's good right where it is in my pocket till I find a bigger edge.
Okay, you love to see it, and no problem at all. That's good information for the chat. Not everybody gambles that way, especially on MMA. You know, Gianni, just pick winners. So, like, I love to hear.
I love it. God bless you, man. If you honestly, if you guys don't change what you're doing, whatever works for you. I'm a student of sports betting. I'm not a teacher. And I learn with every win and every loss. I try to learn and share what I've learned with other bettors. So hopefully they don't make mistakes I did, because you're going to learn one of 2 ways, either from the market or from someone that actually knows what they're doing. Someone that knows what they're doing is going to teach you a lot cheaper than the market. The market's going to cost you money for you to learn. Like, I had to lose a lot of money to learn a lot of things. I'm trying to stop other people from having to take that same road and maybe save a little time and a little money. That's why I say what I say. It's not telling you do it the way I did it. It's just, if it's not working, if you're not plus positive EV, if you're not really turning a profit and that is your goal, you're not doing it for entertainment, then maybe take a step back and be honest with yourself and maybe reevaluate your thesis. There's nothing harder for a human being to do than reevaluate their thesis and admit they were wrong. Like, we are the worst at doing that. But if you get to the point where you can do that and you're honest and you change your thesis, rest assured you could turn into a winning bettor. But until that happens, and you're going to keep hitting your head against the wall. Because again, I wish I could just watch sports and pick winners. I wish that's what it was like. But I've been done this so long, and it's just not. There's no one I know that wins money that's a winning sports bettor that doesn't approach it understanding how markets work and not just being a fan, such a diehard fan of the sport that they know more than the odds maker. That's a fool's errand, thinking that's how you're going to beat them, unless you have access to inside information again. And, if you do, God bless you. Have at it.
There you go. All right. Next up, we got TJ Brown taking on Bill Algeo, and it's a spot, Gianni, where I caught myself. You talk about, reworking your thesis, and that's something I'm currently in the process of. I had an awful year last year. This year's already going much, much better for me. And one of the things I caught myself doing is when I am high on somebody where the market isn't necessarily high on them, I would just get a little fancy. After 2 or 3 wins in a row, me being right and everybody else is wrong, now everyone jumps on board and I go, it's not a sexy pick anymore. It's not popular anymore. I'm going to start finding an opportunity to poke holes in my own thoughts on this guy now. And then I flip, and sure enough, I lose money because I was right the first time. I didn't need to get fancy and go against him. That's me here this week with Bill Algeo. I was way hyped to this kid before everybody else was. He's done well so far in the UFC. He's maybe a little too big of a favorite this week here against TJ Brown, but TJ Brown is not a guy that I feel like I need to flip the script on and go get my money on. If anything, it's going to be a pass for me, but I lean to the favorite. What do you think?
I like the Algeo side. And here's what scares me, that he's not a big enough favorite.
Yes.
I know that's going to confuse some bettors out there, but I bet momentum. I bet mean reversion. There's a few factors that I look for. And one of the things you need to understand is if you see like something that's not, you got to trust your instinct. Meaning if you expect a team, a fighter to come out as a huge favorite, a minus 300, and you look up at the board and he's minus 120, or you expect a team to be a 7-point favorite, and you look up and they're a pick 'em, instead of getting excited and jumping on that right away, you sometimes need to take a step back and you need to ask yourself, are they really going to be 7 points off on a game this a marquee of a game? Are they going to be 90 cents off on a fight that is this marquee? Like, what is the reasoning behind that? I get it. The book's trying to manage risk. They're not trying to predict outcomes. But even in their goal of managing risk, does this mispricing help them do that? More times than not, you're going to come to the conclusion that no, that isn't helping them do that. And that's when you need to take a step back and say, I'm missing something, because that's exactly what my problem is here. I want to bet Algeo. I really want to bet him. Everything I see points to him. The strength of schedule isn't even close. You look at even what they've done in the UFC so far. You know, both guys 3-3. One guy's 1-1 as a dog. One guy's 1-1 as a favorite. Like, those things are comparable. But as far as what we've seen from Algeo, I just expected him to be a bigger favorite here. Now, I like the fact the line moved in the right direction. That positive, boo. Price action is a good sign. Opens 130, gets bet up to 200. It's exactly what a favorite's supposed to do. My concern, again, was that they opened it so low. I needed to see them open this higher, and then I was hoping to get some dog money, and that way I'll get some value, meaning if the market disagrees, and then I think the market's wrong, more time than not, long term, they're not going to be wrong, but they are in instances. And that's just one of those spots where that's what's held me off here, that the opener was so low that I had to take a step back and try to figure out why. Because, again, with TJ Brown, sure, he's off a win, 3-1 off his last 4. Well, Gio's coming in off a loss, but he just doesn't have that kind of hype where I expected this price to be that low. That's my problem. So again, anytime I'm not able to answer my own question, I just pass, dude. Again, I don't want to waste the viewer's time, and I have actionable information. I could tell you exactly what bets I placed on this card because I gave out 5 or 6 plays already to subscribers. I'll give you those, no problem. But again, a fight like this where I like the Algeo side, I'd be willing to bet the Algeo side if I was betting, for action, or if this was, 15, 20 years ago and I didn't, it wasn't at this point where I got to be so sure it's a plus CV trade, right? I have no reason to touch it, man. I'd rather put my money elsewhere. So again, I like the Algeo side. I couldn't bet the dog. It's the Algeo or pass, but it won't be a bet I'll be on Saturday. Okay,
I feel the same way. Let's see what happens next up here. Rafa García taking on Clay the Carpenter Guida. Man, this card, I'm usually a dog or pass kind of guy. This card's a very favorite or pass for me in a lot of these spots. I just can't look past the age of Clay Guida. I know we've got some questions about Garcia's gas tank, and Clay might be the type of guy that can expose some of that, but I got to think he's working on it and getting better. 2 different trajectories. I would lean to the García side.
For me, right away, I got to look to the García side or pass immediately just when I look at the price. Again, Clay's getting almost a little higher than 2-1, and that's still not enough. When you factor in the huge age discrepancy, that alone should keep you off it. The fact you're looking at 13 plus years, that's such a monumental number for the older fighter to overcome. Like, you want to be getting greater than 3-1. You don't want to be getting break-even odds. Meaning, even in roulette, if you go down to play roulette and they give you 38-1, you're still not making a great bet. They're only giving you 35-1. So people that are playing it right now are making awful bets. Even the guy right now, as I'm talking, who just hit his number and got paid 35-1, he placed a terrible bet, an awful bet. He won, granted, but it's an awful bet. Even if they gave that gentleman 38-1, it's still an awful bet because there's 38 spaces on that roulette wheel. If he was getting 39-1, great bet. 38 spaces, they're giving you 39-1. That's plus EV all day. You got it's worth taking a shot. And that's the problem I have here. Immediately, once I see that age discrepancy, and I know that it's a trend that 7 out of 10 times over a long sample size, the older fighter hasn't been able to overcome, it's not even in the ballpark where I could then take a next step and let me dig into the X's and O's. Let me dig into the strength of schedule. Why even waste my time when already one of the boxes are just going to, or won't be able to check it? Like, the price alone doesn't allow for that, because he's not getting above 3-1. And that's what I need, knowing that 7 out of 10 times fighters in this spot will lose that fight. Again, I try to not make it harder than it is. Not the smartest guy in the world, so I keep things very simple. And to me, it's like that. You bet the favorite or leave it alone. And don't be afraid of betting favorites this week. Real quickly, need to share this. I harped about it after the first 5 or 6 weeks. You kept hearing it over and over again, that the dogs will come back. If there's one thing I understand, it's markets. They're rubber bands. And after seeing that favorites were at 75%, not just through the first 6 events of this year, but dating back to the final 7 events of last year. So we had about 13 events, over 100 plus fight sample size, where the favorites were winning at a 75% clip. There's just math. Just as a bettor who understands math, you should have been looking at that next month and being like, the only favorite I'm going to bet, I have to be so confident that he's underpriced, because I know that the market is so at a spot where it's got to come back. Just the laws of big numbers tell us that. It's not my opinion. Like, this is fact. These are laws of math. It's like gravity. I can't change that, even if my opinion is different. It's science. And when you have a market move so far in one direction, it's going to come back in the other. It always does. And that's why over the last 4 weeks, what have we seen? We've seen exactly 28 favorites and 21 dogs. So that's about where are we at right there? 56, 57% favorites compared to 65 historically, or 75 where they were just a month ago. It's going to bounce back. So again, don't be afraid to bet a little favorites this week, because we've seen over the last, now it's a sample size of 50 plus fights where the dogs have overextended a little bit. So there's always give and take. That's why I keep this data and these stats. And I did it with Inside the Distance and Decision, because you find periods during the year where I'm going to look for more dogs here. I'm going to look for more favorites there. Not blindly bet every dog or blindly bet every favorite, but just have that in the back of my mind that, oh yeah, during this time, I am going to be a little more, you know what, every favorite don't have to check every box this week, or every dog this week don't have to check every box. If it checks 3 out of 4 boxes, it's enough to place a bet, because I expect the market to be regressing and help me that way as well. So for me, this is one of those spots where I'm not afraid to bet the favorite. Haven't done it, but I'd bet García or leave it alone.
I love it, Gianni. I was actually hoping I was going to circle around to that point at the end of the show. I'm glad you mentioned it, because that was something that I heard. And about a month or so ago, I was licking my lips hoping live dogs would come around. It's been a pretty tasty couple of UFC events with them barking. I think you're right. I think we're going to be back to a bit more chalky here for some of these upcoming events. Next up, Gutiérrez taking on Munhoz. It's another one of these changing of the guard spots. Great matchmaking, 2 leg kickers. You got the younger guys, a -200 favorite. And I hate to say it, broken record, but again, favorite or pass for me. I think it's Gutiérrez or leave it alone. What about yourself?
I actually have a small bet on Munhoz. I do. It's a bet I'm probably going to lose. I expect to lose. Again, I place a lot of bets going in expecting I'm going to lose them. Sometimes you get lucky, you know what I mean? And you nail one. Like Shevchenko didn't get there. I bet the dog that night, and I expected to throw that ticket away. Again, not bragging I bet the right side, but explaining that, taking a +400, I know I'm going to throw that ticket away even when I'm running my hottest 7.5 out of 10 times. So I know even when I'm at my hottest, when things are going great and I have a +400 ticket, that 7.5 out of 10 times, that ticket's going in the trash. Like, you need to know that going in. And this is one of those spots where I expect my ticket to go in the trash. But I just don't think that I should be getting almost 2-1. I think he's got a much better chance than 1 in 3 of winning this fight. It almost reminds me a little bit of what we saw last week. What was all that excitement? What was that? I can't believe I'm forgetting it right now. that loss.
Was it Rosas? Is that the one you're talking about?
No, man. Giannis. My guy,
Adrian Yanez. Okay.
Yanez and Font. This is what it reminds me of. Now, I get it. Munhoz has had a little worse go of it over his last 5 fights compared to Font, who is just coming in off of 2 losses. I get it. Little different. But what reminds me of is that the younger guy has come in looking unbeatable, looking at his best, meaning over his last couple fights, he's looked like you can't really look better than what you saw Yanez look going into that last fight. Like he had won, I think, every single fight. He had 5 performance bonuses. He had back-to-back first-round finishes going into that fight. So you were never going to find a spot where he's probably looked better. You don't want to bet him then. If anything, you want to wait till maybe he has a rough go of it and wins and is undervalued in his next fight, or even loses and is even more undervalued in his next fight. Like, you don't want to bet him at that spot where everything was going right as they're leading in. And that's what this reminds me of. I have a Gutiérrez who's coming in off 4 straight wins. In fact, his only blemish over his last 8 is a draw. He's coming in off back-to-back knockouts in the first and second round, a performance bonus right before the Frankie Edgar win. It's a little reminder of this isn't the time to bet him. The time to bet Gutiérrez is if he struggles against Munhoz. And because of that, you're getting him at a discount next time around. He just finished Frankie Edgar in the first round. You think you're going to get him next time around a little even cheaper? No, he's going to be even more expensive. And against Munhoz, who is in that Frankie Edgar and, trajectory of career class. I mean, I'm trying to be as respectful as I can. It's the same situation. I would rather take the dog, believing I'm getting the best of it, even if it loses. And if I'm looking to bet Gutiérrez because I'm a big fan, I'm hoping he doesn't look good in this one, and I circle him down the road to take advantage of that. But you're not taking advantage of anything. You're just predicting he's going to beat Munhoz, and the line to you is irrelevant. Meaning, if you're betting Gutierrez and -2 whatever, if you go to a sportsbook tomorrow and he's 330, you're probably still betting him. He's probably still being in your parlay. Again, I don't work like that. How you're working works for you, God bless you. Have at it, more power to you. I've just learned that approach doesn't work. Like, for me to make money, I've had to figure out how to get the best of it. Once I figured that out, my life became so easy. I sleep good. I don't overbet. I could care less. I don't watch finals till the next day. But you have to get there, and I hope everybody does. So if your reason for betting Gutierrez is, I think he's going to win, maybe recheck your thesis. Mine on Munhoz, I gave you the reasoning. He's undervalued. The price, I expect to lose the bet, but I'm getting more than I should. That's the only reason I'm placing it. Same thing as roulette. If they give me 40-1 in a roulette wheel, I'll go down there and bet it. I'm probably not going to hit the number. Of course I'm not. I got a 1 in 35 chance, 1 in 38 chance. Probably not going to hit it, but I'm getting 40-1. I have to place that bet. How am I not going to place it? It's plus EV all day. I'm going to sit there until they change the rules on me because I know I'm getting the best of it. That's all I'm ever hoping for as a bettor, to get the best of it. If you're hoping to beat them by out predicting them, yeah, good luck, dude. Again, I've been here 25 years. I've never met one person that could do that. And I've had the pleasure of traveling the world. I've had the pleasure of working for multiple betting syndicates in multiple betting markets and sports. And none of them, as good as and sharp as they are, have been able to predict outcomes. All of them have been able to locate inefficient prices. Every one of them down to the last one does it that way. So again, I'm just following what I learned. Nothing more than that.
Fair enough. That's not one that I'm planning on betting. It does. I'm glad you mentioned the Yanez spot because that one smelled a little off to me last week as well. Thankfully, I avoided that bear trap. This next one, though, speaking of bear traps, I own Cuțelaba and Tanner Boser. It's another fight with a lot of big question marks. We've got a weight class change. We've got 2 guys that are in desperate need of the win. I'll be honest with you, Johnny, the over 1.5 is the only thing that I was looking at as far as a bet is concerned because we see these fighters with their backs against the wall. they take a risk-averse approach and they want to do whatever it takes to get their hand raised, which usually leads to a bit of a slower-paced fight. That's the only place I'm looking. I'm not picking a side here on this one, but I'd love to get your thoughts and see if there's anything we should know.
I absolutely love this fight. Put me down on Cuțelaba, baby. Best bet that one.
All right.
Yeah, listen. Number one, what made me the happiest is seeing the pictures of Boser and how great he looks. Dude, you're cutting down. Let me explain it, just from what, again, I'm not the MMA expert. I'm the furthest thing from an MMA expert. I'm a casual observer, probably at best. Here's what I've observed, though, so far. Most guys that want to challenge themselves, that are going for elite status, they're moving up in weight and they're taking on the next guy, the next biggest challenge. That's what I've seen, at least. That's what my eyes have told me. There's been maybe one or two guys that say, I'm going to slim down because I want to challenge myself at 125. I was at 135. I want to go down. Sure, we've seen that. But rarely does a heavyweight champ say, now I want the light heavyweight title. Rarely does the middleweight champ say, you know what, I'm going down. I want the welterweight title. I want the lightweight strap. Mm-hmm. I've never heard that. I've never heard the middleweight say, I want the lightweight strap. Never. So immediately when I see a fighter going down a weight class, I need to ask myself why. So I need to look, has he been winning? And that's why he says, you know, I'm doing so good here. Imagine if I just stepped down a level, what I could do there with lighter guys. No, that's not the case. He's not winning. That's not why he's moving. Is he moving because he's been crushing it, that he's going to dominate a different division, a different weight class, because he's been so dominant at heavyweight that now he wants to go dominate elsewhere? No, it's because he's not dominant. It's because he's lost 3 of the last 4. And that's what you do when you're trying to reinvent yourself. Figure out how to start winning again. Unfortunately, once you start doing that, for me, that's where I'm looking to fade you. I'm not looking to bet back fighters that find themselves in that not very, advantageous position where you're looking for a new weight class because you're not having success in your own. Not looking to go dominate somewhere else, not looking to challenge yourself, but looking to start winning again. That's not a positive sign for me, number one. Number two, I look at the X's and O's. Again, I'm not a big X's and O's guy because I don't even know what I'm watching, but I know enough to read analytics. So I just follow the analytics. And what they tell me here is that if Cuțelaba implies any kind of grappling, he could make this a pretty easy night. Meaning he averages 4+ takedown attempts per 5 minutes? And he's going up a guy who's only faced 17 takedowns in his whole UFC career? And he stops only about 6 out of 10 of those? It looks to me like as long as Cuțelaba doesn't get dropped by a big right hand, he should be fine in this fight. And then even when I look at the striking, I just don't see the glaring disadvantages. Again, immediately when I saw the heavyweight going down, that was a telling sign. But as I dug in deeper, there's just nothing there to like on the underdog. Hasn't performed as he's 1-1 as an underdog. He's a 500 fighter in the UFC. His strength of schedule is against guys who've won 50% of their fights. That's who his UFC wins are against. So for me, I like the Cuțelaba side. I'm on the Cuțelaba side. Another fight where I'm comfortable laying all the way up to -150. I think he comfortably wins this fight 6 out of 10 times. Regardless of this outcome, I think that -160 is 150 is a fair line. I think a true line is probably closer to that 170, 180 range. Since I got closer to a pick 'em, I'm all over this. You could lay that 125, 130 with ease. Take the Cuțelaba side. He wins this fight. I wouldn't be surprised if it's quickly either. Once you see all that, how I slimmed down, it's all nonsense, dude. Don't believe the hype. It's all nonsense.
I love to hear it, Johnny. That's the one where my cap led me to Ion Cuțelaba as well. But then I looked at it and went, I can't trust the IQ. I can't trust him against a bigger opponent. He's done so many stupid things. And I might be joining you just for the sake of it, because my initial lean was Cuțelaba, and hearing everything
it.
you're saying is just making too much sense.
Do it. Just that, again, a casual observer watching MMA. I've seen guys challenge going up. I don't see them challenging going down, man. There's only one reason you're going down. If you're not dominating and you're going down to dominate, you know what I mean? Like, again, Dillashaw went down because he was dominating. He wants to go dominate another weight class. He wants to go set a record. He wants to reach Hall of Fame status. That's not why Boser's going down the light heavyweight, bro. He's not going
He's doing it
there
hoping he can get off his back.
Yeah, exactly. Against a guy who averages 5 takedown attempts for 5 minutes. Again, if it was a striker he's facing, maybe let's see how he performs. Let's step back. But I got the X's and O's even on my side, where my guy does have a path to victory against the bigger opponent. It's not like it's not there in front of us. So give me Cuțelaba, baby.
Johnny, Anthony in the chat is absolutely killing me. He only has one weight class he could change to. He can't go up.
I love, well, stay there then. Stay there. I love it. Great point. Great point. We don't have a super heavyweight in the UFC yet. But again, who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that?
No, I hear you.
Give me the last 5 successful heavyweights who went down because they were having such success at heavyweight. That's why they moved down the light heavy. Give me one. Not 5. Give me one over the last 30 years of the UFC that said, I'm going to challenge at light heavyweight because heavyweight's too easy. It's just too easy. I'm just tired of beating these dudes. I've won too many titles. I need to go down. No, it's not why Boser's going down, dude.
I like it. All right, next up, maybe the most confusing fight for me here is Dustin Jacoby taking on Azamat Murzakanov.
Yeah.
I tried to fade Murzakanov with Tayfun Nchukwi a couple fights ago, and I still to this day blame his corner, Gianni. He's up 2 rounds to nothing, and his corner tells him, go get a finish, and he walks right into a flying knee. That's the only reason Murzakanov is still undefeated at this point, because he was losing to Tayfun Nchukwi in that fight. If he just did for 5 more minutes what he'd already done for 10. I think Dustin Jacoby can do easily that and then some. He's a much better kickboxer. He should be winning here, but it's nothing but this line crashing. Money just continues to flood in on Azamat Murzakanov, and it doesn't make sense to me. What can you tell me here on this one?
Yeah, and you got to pay attention to price action. That shouldn't be a reason for your bet alone, but it has to be one of the factors. You're foolish if it isn't. You got to pay attention to where the line opens, what happens to it in between the open and the close, because that's while information is being factored into the betting line. That's why you can't argue that the closing line is the most accurate reflection we have of true win probability, meaning the closing line is always the strongest reflection we have of what the true line should be, because all the information's been factored in. And I understand it's not perfect. Meaning even in the NFL, where it's supposed to be the hardest sport to beat, they're still about 10 points off average, the closing line, to what the final score is. So again, they're not perfect, but it's the best we have. And the reason it's the best we have, again, is because by the time the line closes, all the info has been factored into it. We know whether they're healthy. We know the weight cuts. We've seen the press conferences. And then in team sports, you know who's healthy, you know the roster, you know the weather, like all those things that are factored into a betting line that force the betting line to be volatile happen before the close. The close is that matters. And everything that's happened up until then is absolutely why you should be hesitant to bet the Jacoby side. You nailed it. I just think they've priced him right. Hear me out. He's 6-2 as a favorite, but the market's been done such a good job of Jacoby, you really haven't made money betting him, because the average closing line is about 235. That's right around 71%, I think, 71, 72%. So he's right around break even, exactly where he should be. So for the line to be going against him is a little telling. I'll tell you this. I don't have a bet on this fight. I will be betting Murzakanov. And the reason I'll be betting Murzakanov is because I don't have a strong opinion, but I know Nick Kaligas does. Honestly, he has a strong opinion. Again, not throwing a name out there, but it's just to bring it up on your show because I know you got a lot of viewers from our community. Dude, there's nothing, you don't have to originate everything. There's nothing wrong with trusting solid sources of information and then agreeing or disagreeing with them. And if you agree with them, then betting it, even at a little worse number. It's called giving up a little ROI to be plus EV. We do it all the time in other markets. I do it when I trade stocks. I do it when I trade cryptocurrency. You wait until the price pierces. Sure, I want to get it right on the bounce, but I need to confirm that the bounce is coming. So I'll let the price pierce and I'll lose a little ROI to confirm. That's okay to do. You just have to know when that EV is no longer positive. So when you have guys out there who are really putting in the work, guys like you, a guy like Nick, an Andrew Gombis, who I know are putting in the work, who the market's respecting, who win more than they lose. If they give me a strong opinion, for me to fade it, I have to have such strong conviction, number one. For me to piggyback it, I don't need much. Meaning I'm not going to blindly do it. I'm at a point in my life where I just don't blindly bet money anymore. I'll have to agree with it and feel strongly as well. But so many times a bettor like that has turned me on to something that I would have never seen. Like I didn't like this fight. It wasn't even on my radar until Nick brought it up. And the more I started looking into it, like I brought up with the betting line with Jacoby, some things stuck out. Like a fighter who's 4-1 over his last 5, who's 6-2 as a favorite, against an opponent who's only had 2 UFC fights, who isn't a big name, number one, who's going to be at a 5-inch reach disadvantage, and the line's moving towards the Murzakanov side. Like if sirens aren't going off, again, maybe reevaluate the thesis. Unless you're way up money, then God bless you, keep doing what you're doing. But otherwise, there's a reason for that. And obviously, like I told you, we know there's sharp winners, guys that win long term who are on the Murzakanov side. That's one of the reasons line's moving. And there doesn't seem to be too much disagreement from other winning bettors because it's not moving the other way. You're not jumping on Jacoby. I'm not jumping on Jacoby. I don't see a lot of guys jumping on Jacoby. So for me, that's why it's another spot where it's a dog or pass. And I probably will have some money on it because a bettor who I respect is pretty confident he's the right side. I'm just honest, man.
Fair enough. Shout out Nick Kalikas. Love that guy. He's another wonderful source of information.
He's the man.
Love to hear it, man. And this one, it's got me scared way away because I'm picking Dustin Jacoby. I think he should win, but I'm with you. I thought the line would be trucking the opposite direction, not crashing. So that's enough for me to stay off of it. Billy Q taking on Edson Barboza. This is maybe the Twitter civil war of the week, man. Back and forth on both sides on this one. Billy Q is about -175 right now over on Superbook Sports. Edson Barboza, he's a guy that he's the gift that keeps on giving. I keep expecting him to look bad. I keep expecting him to fall off a cliff, and he just doesn't. You know, he reminds me a lot of Jose Aldo, where it was every time you count him out, he comes back with a highlight reel in his next performance, never looked better. And I don't want to step in front of that guy. So it's another spot where I am picking Billy Q. I think the younger fighter, and he's not that much younger, actually, when you look at their ages. Billy's older than I expected. But I'm going to pick Billy Q. I wouldn't be shocked if this is one of the dogs that barks this week, but I'm not as convicted to put my money on it as some people are. I'm going to let this one go.
I agree with you. I'm on the Billy Q side or pass. I haven't bet this yet, but that is the side I'm looking at. And I'm sitting back and hoping that you get that Barboza love and this number comes back because I missed it. And again, the best advice I could give new bettors and even seasoned bettors, if you miss a price, let it go. You're not placing a good bet anymore. Like you got to get over that. You got to get over the FOMO, the fear of missing out. You got to get past the.
That's so hard to let that go.
They're going to cash a ticket. You know, they're going to cash a ticket, and I would have cashed that. I was on the right side. No, you weren't on the right side. You weren't the right side at -130 and 140. The right side isn't 170. You got the lucky. You were the product of good luck at that point, just like the roulette guy. Again, his good bet would have been at 39-1. The fact he hit the roulette number doesn't make it a good bet. That doesn't change the definition. So meaning even if like Billy Q is a great bet, -130, 140, 125, 150. Now 170, even someone like me who expects him to win, who feels confident, who a lot of the X's and some of the things that I look at, the boxes that I check off, are in the Billy Q side, especially the fact that Barboza has underperformed in this spot, meaning even as an underdog where he's 3-4, he's underperformed. He hasn't like outperformed the betting market by all that much. And he's a fighter who's coming in having won only 3 of his last 7 fights. And I get it, strength of schedule matters. But Billy Q's opponents have won 61% of their UFC fights. It's not like he's fighting 50-50 fighters. And his losses come against 69% winners. So again, the strength of schedule, I get it, who Barboza's fought, but the results of those opponents, at least over the last 10, have not been good. So for me, I like the Billy Q side, but it's another example of I missed the price. And you got to be honest with yourself. And me, I'm with the viewers. Like, I'm not going to tell you I bet Billy Q minus 130 when I didn't. Like, that would have been a great bet. And sure, you could brag about it, but I don't have that ticket. And I'm not going to lay a minus 170 now because I would have had to conclude that he should be about a minus 225, right? Because listen, at minus 170, that's a 63% break even. So I would have to think it's got to be at least 215 or so, around that 68% for me to have a margin. Because you need a margin to place a bet. That's what your edge is. Without a margin, you don't have an edge. Like, there's no reason to place a bet. You're laying 11 to win 10. That's a bad bet. The reason you should be laying 11 to win 10 is because it's actually, you're getting the best of it because the number's off, the point spread's off. And the hold with most MMA is even higher. I'm seeing minus 115 lines. So your guys' hold is even worse than 11 to win 10. In that case, you really have to be cautious not to take bad numbers. So the takeaway for this fight is I like Billy Q. I think Billy Q's the right side, but he's at the wrong price right now. If the love for Barboza drives this price back down, then I'm ready to fire. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to sit back. And, if he wins, I say I'm right. Nothing gained. If he loses, I'm wrong. Nothing lost. It's okay. I can move on.
I like it. I'm going to go ahead and pick Billy Q as well, Gianni. It's main event time. Everybody, this is Pub Sports Radio. Lines are brought to you by Superbook Sports, and I am joined by Gianni, the Greek. Do us a favor and hit the like button while you're here hanging out. Main event for UFC Kansas City. Max Holloway, Arnold Allen. A lot's been made of the damage Max has taken. He's been historically taking damage over the last couple fights. But the thing that jumps off the page at me, Gianni, is he's just 31 years old. Now, there are some fighters out there who are prematurely shot because of the wars they've been in, because of the damage they've taken. That's all speculation. I'm not sure that Max necessarily is prematurely shot. And if it wasn't for Alexander Volkanovski, he is still the king of this division, in my opinion. There's a big jump up here for Arnold Allen, who won his last fight via a very, very fluky injury. Not to say he wouldn't have won it without it, but it ended very oddly. I can't make heads or tails of this fight. It's another spot like the rest of this card. I'm going to pick Max Holloway to win this thing. I think he gets it done, but I don't know if I need to get to that with my money. What do you think on this one? Are you seeing anything, and should we know anything?
What did we talk about a little earlier? Yanez. The wrong time to bet him was last time around. This time, what do we talk about? Gutiérrez, win or lose. Wrong time to bet him in this particular fight because he's coming in looking his best against a fighter who's coming in arguably looking at his worst. At least if you look at the big picture of his career. Opposite trajectories. So you're usually not going to get the best of it in that spot, especially with the name recognition that goes along with both these fighters. Here's the opposite of that. You're able to get Max Holloway when he's at his lowest. So we're getting an elite company when their stock is at their lowest. Everything checks out. Their balance sheet, their debt ratio, nothing's changed much except the price. The only thing that's changed is the price. And now there's, a little more competition in that industry. That's about it. Because when I dig into the financials, I see that Max Holloway in this spot has done nothing but spit out money. He's been a favorite 18 times in the UFC. He's rewarded his backers 17 of those times. The average closing line, minus 336. It should have been closer to minus 1,000 because, again, he won 94% of his fights, and the average closing line was around 76% of his fights. So he's outperformed the betting market, even as a favorite, even as one of the biggest names in MMA, even with such a fan base, by over 20, almost 20%. That tells you this is a fighter or a team that's an outlier, that you have to, if you're going to fade, again, have a lot of conviction doing it. He's 4-4 over his last 8, but let's look at the competition. His losses come against opponents who are a combined 49-5. They won 91% of their UFC fights. That's who Max Holloway loses against. The 91 percentile. That's who he loses against. Look at Arnold Allen. He's done nothing wrong. Perfect. 10-0 in the UFC. More importantly, 7-0 as a favorite. We don't know much about him in the underdog role because it's only happened 3 times. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, when I look at that opposition, they haven't even won 60% of their fights in the UFC. They're 45-30-1. That's 59%. A little lower than 60. So again, strength of schedule, 2 different stratospheres. Experience, 2 different stratospheres. 5-round experience, 2 different. The spectrum is just so opposite from each other that the only reason we're having a debate is the price and the fact that there's recency bias attached to Max Holloway. And that's exactly when I want to bet him. I don't want to bet Max Holloway when everyone's on him, when everyone thinks he's going to win, when it's like a no loss, because I know the price is not going to be there for me. I'm not going to be able to get any ROI from it. Here's where I could get some ROI from Max Holloway. Here's where I could take advantage of a talent like Max Holloway, where win or lose, I'm pretty sure I'm getting the best of it. Because if I'm not laying minus 200 on a Max Holloway fight when he's a favorite, then I'm probably getting the best of it. At least that's what history tells me. And I don't have a small sample size. I have an 18-fight sample size with a fighter who only has 26 fights. That's almost his entire career. Again, I could go on forever arguing the Max Holloway side, and he could still go out and lose Saturday night. And I'll wake up Sunday morning telling you that was a great bet. Probably one of the best bets I placed all week. Because, again, I just look for getting in at the best of it. I got in a little bit earlier. Again, another spot where respected guy pointed me towards the right direction, and everything I saw agreed. So I got down at 150. But like I said, I am comfortable betting this one all the way up to minus 200. I like the Max Holloway side. I would expect him to get it done inside the distance, believe it or not, but I do not bet on.
I was looking at the under.
I don't bet him. Here's why. I have to really like it. Like, I have to be so confident to bet it, because I just know that historically, if you bet under 4.5s, that they are negative 8.2% ROI over the last decade. Under 3.5s are minus 21.8% negative ROI. And it makes sense because as fans who are bettors, they want to see action. Just like in team sports.
We want the under.
The overs are biased. They're shaded. Doesn't mean you bet the under blindly. It just means you look for spots to bet the under because you know more times than not the over is going to be shaded. In MMA, we know the under 4.5, the under 3.5 is going to be shaded. So we look for spots to go over and take advantage of that. This isn't one of them, or I'd be on the over. That's the problem. Because going over, you're plus 9% ROI blindly. If you did nothing else over the last decade, but just bet over 4.5 at the close, you're about, over 7%. At the open, you're over 9% ROI. Just doing nothing but that. Going over 3.5, you're plus almost 16% ROI over the last 10 years. Just going over 3.5. So going over 3.5 and over 4.5 over the last 10 years, doing nothing else, has brought you almost a combined 25% return on investment. It's not going to last forever because I keep repeating this. Markets evolve and they're very efficient. So it will catch up and that trend will no longer work. I've kept it in my pocket and made enough money off it over the years that I've been screaming it for the last 6 months or so. And hopefully other guys can take advantage. But this is one of those spots where, because my big picture thesis is I'm looking to go over 3.5, over 4.5. This one doesn't fit the criteria. In fact, it's the opposite. It fits the under criteria, which is forcing me to sit out as far as the total goes.
Okay, thank you very much for all of that, Gianni. Everybody, this is the Sharp Action Report. Do us a favor, hit the like button, and that is UFC Kansas City. We've got the ceremonial weigh-ins here in about 40 minutes or so. Of course, I'll be back for the Undefeated Post weigh-in show right after that. Gianni, thank you for joining us today and sharing what you've got there. The floor is yours. If there's any upcoming shows you want to shout out or anything you've got going on you want to tell the viewers, you have at it.
No, thank you. Thanks for following me. Thanks for all your support. Check me out at Greek_Gambler, and of course, the Gambler's Perspective, and UFC Online on Fight Pass. A little PFL action before I came on. I bet a little bit on Shane Burgos. I got a little bit on Ahmed Amir, just in case you guys are interested in that. And
I'm on Shane Big.
All right. I got a little piece there, and that's about it, man. Just looking forward to what's coming up ahead. I'm setting up something special starting in May 1st. You guys can sign up. It's free for a whole month. What we're going to do is I'm going to give, I've been managing accounts for a long time. The technology hasn't allowed me to do what I do with managed accounts with subscription, because there's a time difference between me betting it, posting it, sending it, then subscribers receiving it. There's a lot of time in between that. Well, we put the technology together where it goes straight to the guy as I'm betting it. Wager Talk has put that together for me. It should be ready to go May 1st. We're going to give that away to everyone for free for 30 days, where they get a free live chat with me every week. And I walk you by the hand and show you what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and the reason we're up close to 200 units already in 2023, and looking forward to an even better 8 months ahead to close out the year. So God bless, man. Coming off my first negative year. I tell you when I win, tell you when I lose. Last year, and that's a perfect example, Clint, not to go long, but I wasn't not making excuses, but it just reminded me that in October, I was up like 100 plus units. I could have just sat back and ended another year ahead and been top 3. But I was doing other things while simultaneously doing this, and that's how quickly it eroded.
Yeah.
8 months of work eroded, 9 months of work within 2 or 3 bad months. Just shows you how you just have to be so on top of this, or it could just all unwind. Again, not to go off on tangents, but it happened to me. And that's why I was expecting this was going to be a great year. And, you know, if you see someone that's won consistently and then they're off a tough year, you usually expect a bounce back. Kind of like if a guy's always losing and they have a winning year, you kind of expect a regression towards that mean.
Absolutely.
It kind of works the same, you know, so I was hoping towards a progression towards the mean. But more importantly, congrats to what you're doing. I told you, you're taking the process of being plus EV and a winning sports bettor. More importantly, you're documenting your journey, which is more important than anything else. I wish I would have done that. We didn't have the technology then, so that other sports bettors see not just how hard it is, but how it is possible. It is possible to get to where you're going. Like I just see the plays you're making, just the betting lines you're using, the ROI, and everything. You're doing it right, Clint. It's just a matter of time and just becoming more efficient. You're going to become more efficient. Your RI is going to increase. You're going to stay off a few more losers. You're going to add a few more winners. That's what's going to happen. As the years pass, you'll start to avoid a couple more losers and see a couple more winners. And it'll make all the difference, man, because our edges aren't that great. But I see what you're doing. You're doing everything right, dude. You're doing everything right. And again, I couldn't be happier for you. I couldn't be happier for you, dude. You're doing it the right way. God bless you. Keep at it. Keep at it, dude.
Thank you, Gianni. Always a constant source of inspiration. I appreciate that. I really do. Because coming off last year, definitely tweaking things and adjusting. And like you mentioned, you know, bad years happen, and I'm working on that bounce back right now.
Horrific rounds, dude.
Dodging the pitfalls is where it's at. 8
years of bets documented. I get people that tease, you know, when I have a bad run, they'll be like, you saw. I said, dude, you could go back. You could find some horrific, like this is nothing. I'm sure you could find a 10-day stretch where I did a lot worse. Like if you're going to do this every day forever, rest assured, bro, you're going to have some tough stretches along the way. That's fine. That's fine. It's how you deal with them. And more importantly, don't let them keep repeating. Like, don't keep making that same mistake. If you're continuing to revenge bet and that's costing you money, or over bet or chase and keep doing the same thing, then that's the tier. There's the problem. You got to get past it here. Like, then that's a personality issue. It's not your betting. That's something you inside have to figure out. Because I had that. I have OCD, so that was my problem. I had to get past the mental hurdles before it all worked out, man. But again, I wish you guys the best. I appreciate your support. God bless. Whether you follow or fade me, I swear to God, dude, I just hope you guys make money. That's all I care. Like, I'm on your side. We're on this. I picked my side a long time ago. I'm on this side of the counter with all you guys. So I know it's a zero-sum game, man, but I just, again, whether you follow or fade, I just hope you cash them.
Right there with you, Gianni. Thank you again for joining the show. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us and watching. We appreciate you guys. Good luck on all your action this week at UFC Kansas City. Have a great day, and we'll see you for the Undefeated post-weigh-in show here in about an hour. Let's roll.